example, if you are a believer in God, he says he calls it empirical. Go and learn the definition of empirical.
That's not what it means, though. That's different.
I think we have done here. We're going round in circles.
You're pretending not to know the difference between finding out something internal and finding out something external. If you're examining something internal to yourself, then you can use your thought process.
So you cannot prove to anyone that you have consciousness. Am I right?
That's true.
Good.
Yes.
So if you cannot prove to someone that you even have consciousness, how are you going to prove to anyone that even God exists? And you keep asking us to prove to us God exists.
Actually,
the guy cannot even define.
I ask you for evidence. I ask you for reason. I don't ask for proof. I ask for any evidence, any reason. I ask for any evidence. I don't ask you for proof God exists. I ask you for any evidence, any reason. No, I ask you for any evidence, any reason. Yes, evidence is not the same thing as proof, is it?
So what does empirical evidence mean?
Empirical evidence means some sort of evidence. Okay, let's define one. Evidence. Evidence is anything.
No, empirical evidence. Give me the definition of empirical evidence. Why laughing?
Because I need to define both the words. You asked for two words. I'm going to define both of them.
No problem.
One, evidence. Evidence is anything that, if it is the case, makes something else more likely to be true.
Okay.
So it's something where, like, A is evidence of B if probability of B given A is higher than probability of B. That's evidence.
So if you cannot give evidence,
and empirical evidence is anything of that does that fills that requirement, which is also something that you experience in some way.
Only experience?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're telling me if you cannot define B,
if it's the difference would be something purely logical, that wouldn't be empirical evidence.
Okay. So
I know logical evidence, you might say.
If B exists and you cannot give a definition or prove empirically that B exists, is it possible for B to exist?
If you can't prove something, if you cannot prove that B is true,
no, not true. Even of its existence.
Okay, if you cannot prove that B exists, is it possible that B exists?
Yes. So, if you cannot prove God, that means God exists.
No.
You see the double standards?
No.
You see the double standards? Oh my God.
You don't even understand logic. What you just said to me is. What you just said to me is that if you cannot prove that B exists, is it possible that B exists?
Yes.
And the answer is yes.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that God B necessarily exists. It might or might not exist.
Okay, so now you're using the term necessarily, but it still exists, right? So you're saying, if you cannot prove B, I told you, I asked you very clearly, if you cannot prove that B exists, then it is possible for it to exist, based on your statement, right?
Yes.
Right. So, but does it necessarily exist?
No.
No. Does your
it might exist, it might not exist.
Wait a minute.
Just because you cannot listen.
Now you're using double standards.
Let me simplify.
It can exist, cannot exist. You see what happens? If you cannot even prove empirically,
please let me simplify it for you. Just because you cannot prove that something exists does not mean that it doesn't exist.
Okay.
That's self-explanatory. It's quite simple.
So what? In other words, does your consciousness exist?
Does my consciousness exist? Yes. I'm certain of it. I have direct evidence of it. I have direct access to it.
But you said you cannot define it, so you cannot give evidence for it.
I can't prove it to someone else, no.
So how do you know your consciousness exists?
You do not know for certain that
How do you know consciousness exists if you cannot prove it to us?
No, I know that. I know it for myself. I can prove it to myself. I just can't prove it to you.
If you can prove it to yourself, how can you prove it to us?
Because you don't have direct access to my brain. You don't have direct access to the experience and the evidence.
I can connect you to certain machines where can you have access to your brain.
What?
I can connect you to certain machines where can you have access to your brain to see those neurons firing, those electromagnetic pulses firing.
In the future, that's a possibility. You might be able to find out.
Not in the future. Now it's possible.
We
can see your brain, certain part of your brain highlighting depending on certain drugs or certain actions you take. Yes.
Okay, but
now
even that would only be evidence. It wouldn't be proof.
Okay, so it's not proof of consciousness.
No, it wouldn't be proof. Let me explain why. So yes, we can look on brain monitors and see parts of the brain lighting up in certain patterns, which kind of through lots of different experiments we observe. This person is conscious when their brain lights up in this way, and when this person,
what do you mean conscious?
As in awake.
How do you know the person might be in a vegetative state and you give them a certain drug and their brain lights up? Does it mean they're awake?
We don't know for certain. That's why I'm saying it's not proof.
Look.
That's why I'm saying it's not proof, it's only evidence.
So in other words, you basically are telling me the only one that you can actually convince that you have consciousness is yourself.
Yes. Yeah, that's true for you as well. That's true for everyone.
So what happened to your definition of of be existing or not existing based on empirical evidence?
Because I have access to the empirical evidence. That's what I've been trying to tell you. Because my consciousness is within my internal world, like my brain, which I have direct access to.
So is it something that is observable? Is it something that we can prove it in a laboratory? Is it something that we can actually measure in a laboratory?
For other people, that would be difficult. But
so
for me,
how do we know you're even telling the truth then?
You don't
it has to come down to you.
That's what I've said. You don't know for.
So in other words,
I don't know
it comes down to you as an individual to say whether something exists or not. Then what is?
It's the same as you. It's the same for you as well. You know that you are consciousness.
James,
you don't know for certain that I'm conscious.
What is stopping some individual telling them that they believe in a certain God who looks like an elephant? Because
that's a totally different question.
No, it's
Why
not.
Are you asking that?
It's not because they believe.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood. Could you repeat the question?
Okay, just like you can convince yourself, only yourself and nobody else, that you have consciousness, they have convinced themselves that God looks like an elephant.
Okay.
Okay. So, who is right from the two of you?
Okay. The difference is my claim is about something internal to myself. It's a claim about my internal world, we could call it, my mind, my brain. Whereas the other person is making a claim about something external to themselves. He's making a claim
How do you know it's external?
He's making a claim
he believes that God is within him. How do you know it's external?
He's making a claim about, okay, if you want to take it in that direction, he might believe that God is some sort of elephant-shaped thing which resides inside him and also created the entire world. So he is still making a claim about something external to him, i.e. the entire world.
No, but I didn't say anything about the external world. I never said that.
No, but
I gave you a hypothetical situation. Just like you said, we can use hypothesis.
A God means a creator, right?
Sorry?
A God means a creator.
For him,
right?
it might mean a different thing.
Okay, but
it might be someone who protects him.
If that's him,
it might be someone who protects him.
Okay, what specifically does he mean then? What is he meaning when he says his words?
Wait. You know why you're asking all these questions?
Because I need to know you ambiguous questions.
No. You know why? Shall I tell you, James?
Define your terms.
James, shall I tell you why?
No.
Because
just define your terms.
No, because you want to get to the truth of the matter. You want to be convinced. You want to be convinced of his worldview, whether it's true or not, right? So just like you have convinced yourself, he has convinced himself, and there shouldn't be any more questions.
No, he's making a claim about something external to himself. I've explained this so many times, and you just are refusing to understand or pretending.
No, I'm not.
You're pretending not to understand, or you're hoping that the audience.
Because anyone who uses the term empirical evidence,
then maybe they'll just brush over.
He should be able.
How many times has this conversation gone round in a circle? So
you're
saying, you just pretend you don't understand.
So James, you're telling me if something is of empirical evidence, you cannot convince other people.
It depends on the empirical evidence.
That's what I'm telling you. Empirical evidence is something that should convince everyone.
You didn't hear. It depends on the type of empirical evidence.
So how many types are there?
Well, for one, we could talk about internal empirical evidence that you only experience yourself inside your internal world, your brain, your mind.
Who defines that as empirical evidence?
Or
who defines that as empirical evidence?
Let's
look at the definition of empirical evidence.
That's external.
So I think he's just been waffling all this time.
Well, if you want.
Let's see the definition of empirical evidence, whether it implies to just personal feelings.
Something that you experience.
Just personal feelings.
That's not exactly what I said, by the way.